Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. Our first segment is called Background Briefing. The very first thing I've been thinking about is Iran. Actually, I've been thinking about Iran quite a bit. Iran, Iran, Iran. If Iran has been in the forefront of your thoughts and your fears about the future of the Western world, about your future and the future of your children, you are right on target. If Iran has not occupied your thoughts and does not inspire fear, think again. Iran is very dangerous. Israel, this current government, past governments, and God willing, future governments have taken the Iranian threat very seriously. Israel understands Iran, and while Jerusalem has not shared details on the how, the what, and the when of their plans, the best minds in Israel's military, intel, and diplomatic arenas are most certainly preparing, or have already prepared, a plan for preemptive, coordinated, simultaneous strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities. They would be foolish not to, and they are not fools. Sometimes a surgical military strike is essential. We can presume, however, that strategically Israel will put off striking Iran for as long as possible in the hope that a diplomatic solution will be found. And the fact that Israel is not trigger happy fits well into Iran's strategy. And when it comes to strategy, as good as Israel is, Iran is masterful. Over the past several weeks, the rhetoric from Israel about Iran's nuclear capabilities has been ratcheting up. And it's getting serious and more intense. The pitch is high. However, at the same time, the international rumor mill has been hinting at a series of important and positive steps about nuclear negotiations between the United States and Iran. The objective is to move Iran off the nuclear brink, thereby lowering tensions and sidelining the inevitability of an Israeli strike against Iran's nuclear facilities. The catch is that, while it sounds laughable to even point this out, Iran cannot be trusted. Iranian leadership has proven time and time again that negotiations and agreements are simply cover for their master plan. Time and time again, the West has played into their hands. And time again, we have learned that Iran's objective is not the items on the table for negotiations, but something else. Like avoiding direct attack, like distracting the West from realizing the true nature of the illegal and nefarious activities. If it wasn't clear until now, it should be perfectly clear by now that negotiations are just a small part of a major set of interlocking strategies that Iran has embarked upon. For Iran, secret negotiations are very important as a buffer. Iran is betting that as long as they are talking with the United States about their nukes, Israel will restrain itself in the hope of attaining a peaceful resolution. They have used this ploy before, and effectively, mind you. From the information that we have gleaned from the unofficial rumors of the secret talks, the United States is perfectly okay with Iran keeping any and all of the fissile material that they have already enriched. They just want to stop Iran from enriching more. And while this sounds simple and straightforward, and seems like a great deal for Iran, it is exactly what Iran does not want, because Iran wants more and more and more. And they'll continue negotiations and putting it off for that very reason. They negotiate with the United States and simultaneously strengthen their bulwark of countries against the United States and the West. The Iranian leadership is cementing strong relations with Russia, with China, and most recently with Saudi Arabia, where they have just opened embassies and exchanged ambassadors. But that's not enough for Iran. They're also courting their natural allies in Latin America. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi has embarked on visits to Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. The visits are anything but secret. Iran's official state agency, their news agency, IRNA, is reporting that they will be expanding bilateral cooperation. Iran and these three countries will together focus on economic, political, and scientific expansion. That's technological and computer also. Needless to say, these countries are not friends of the United States nor the West. All three run by leftist regimes with horrific human rights records. Iran is insinuating itself against potential sanctions imposed by the United States and Western countries. Iran is giving voice to countries that resent the United States' influence and world hegemony. Iran will cultivate more and more allies who are sympathetic to their cause, countries that will bolster and support Iran, not just economically, but in the world media and international forums like, of course, the United Nations. Countries that will join in the condemnation of Israel, if Israel should strike Iran's nuclear sites. And in another move destined to weaken the United States, Iran has been seizing oil tankers in the Straits of Hormuz. 15 tankers in the last 2 years have been seized by Iran. Other tankers have been subject to Iranian strikes. The United States Fifth Fleet is responsible for securing the straits. The catch is that if the United States steps up their naval presence in that very, very narrow waterway, or even just outside the straits, U.S. ships become very slow-moving, very big targets for Iranian attacks. And Iran is waiting for the perfect time to attack. Surgical attacks, annoying attacks, enough to irritate the United States without causing an international incident. All the while, Iran is also building their nuclear capabilities. That's Iran's modus vivendi. That's how they work. That is why we are right to be fearful, why Israel is right to be fearful, why Israel is right to be prepared. Coming up next, Points of View. First up is a column from Ynet that was published on May 23, 2023. The column is written by Yossi Yehoshua, and it's entitled Hezbollah's Show of Strength, From Provocations to Potential War. Subtitled, Analysis, Terror groups' military drills on Israel's borders aren't just showboating, and while the organization is not preparing for a full-scale war, its special units are ready to storm Israeli border communities and take hostages. Again, the subtitle indicates everything. In this column, Yossi Yehoshua is about to unveil a truly harrowing scenario. Yehoshua argues that while Hezbollah, which is headquartered in Lebanon, is not about to launch a full-scale war against Israel, he believes that their strike units and their specialty forces are prepared right now to attack Israel. As part of that attack, they will take Israeli hostages and bring them back with them into Lebanon. Yehoshua begins by discussing Israel's recent Gaza operation. The operation was called Operation Shield and Arrow. This is how he begins. Operation Shield and Arrow was a resounding success. The defense establishment and politicians got the credit they deserve, but we must keep things in proportion and remember that this was a confrontation against Palestinian Islamic Jihad, our most convenient enemy, without Hamas getting involved. The real concern is a war in Lebanon against Hezbollah. Just to put things into perspective, Islamic Jihad began the operation with less than 6,000 rockets, most of them locally produced and short range. They launched a total of 1,100 rockets in 5 days. About a quarter of them fell in the Gaza Strip, and only a few reached central Israel. The result was 1 Israeli casualty. Now Yehoshua very clearly draws the tension between Gaza and Hezbollah and tells us that Israel needs to recognize the difference. Gaza launched 1,100 small rockets in 5 days. Hezbollah can launch at least 3,000 in a single day with longer ranges and much more accuracy. This is how he continues. Hezbollah, on the other hand, can launch over 3,000 long-range, heavier and much more accurate rockets in a single day. We need to be prepared for that. We must quickly stop letting ourselves be blinded by successful yet minuscule operations. Just this Sunday, Hezbollah wrapped up a special military drill right on Israel's northern border, a demonstrative and provocative display meant for the eyes of the IDF. The drills simulated an attack against Israeli communities and the abduction of captives. In the documentation that circulated from the exercise, Hezbollah operatives are seen using drones, motorcycles, Israeli flags, and symbols of the Star of David as shooting targets. Now Yehoshua warns analysts not to belittle Hezbollah, reminding them that Hezbollah has become an experienced fighting force, racking up serious fighting time in Syria, fighting on behalf of Assad. In his words, some of the Israeli spectators ridiculed the absurdities seen in the videos, but we may want to think twice before belittling them. There has been a significant improvement in the capabilities of Hezbollah's ground units, especially the elite Radwan force, which now has operational experience in Syria. Apparently, under Hezbollah's Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah's guidance, these forces have now been deployed to the border with Israel. This is a very conspicuous offensive move, signaling that they are merely waiting for the order to infiltrate. The training began in April 2022 and was completed within a year, with the intention of improving the level of readiness for war. For over a decade, Nasrallah has been talking about the transition from Lebanon's shield to Galilee conqueror. That's Hezbollah. He is not referring to sending troops to Acre, but rather special units infiltrating communities along the border. Unfortunately, it's not that hard a task, given its forces are right on the fence. Yehoshua concludes with an IDF assessment and with a warning to Israel's leadership to be prepared for a series of options. He writes, "The prevailing assessment in the IDF is that although Hezbollah is more audacious and willing to take risks, it does not plan to engage in a full-scale war. The expectation is of days of battle, but it is difficult to predict exactly what they will entail." The IDF Northern Command has already adjusted its readiness, strengthened its defenses with more lethal means, developed a response to potential activities by the Radwan force, deployed measures to neutralize an offensive plan with technological means, and even established a target pool. Whether it is a broad war against Hezbollah or a round of fighting, the opening strike will likely determine the extent of the conquest. This is an excellent piece. It is an extremely sobering piece also. Next up is a column published on June 11th, 2023 in the Jerusalem Post. It was written by Uri Polkovsky, and it is entitled 18 Facts About Israel Every 18-Year-Old American Needs to Know. Opinion. Subtitled, "These 18 Facts About Israel are designed not to give American Jewish students the tools to defeat the campus anti-Israel movement, but to know the truth about Israel." When I first read this headline, I expected that the column would be packed with 18 points of propaganda. To my delight, I was pleasantly surprised at how honest the author is concerning Israel. That honesty is a tool that others should learn from, enabling them to be more effective in getting young adults to embrace Israel. The 18 facts presented here show great insight. Pilikovsky begins his column by setting the stage. This is how he begins. As high school seniors graduate this month, their attention turns to starting college in the fall. Unfortunately, many American universities have turned into bastions of anti-Zionism and anti-Israel lectures and activism. As the Anti-Defamation League stated, the campus anti-Israel movement frequently denigrates Zionism as inherently racist and disparages pro-Israel students, at times invoking anti-Semitic tropes. These 18 facts about Israel are designed not to give American students the tools to defeat the campus anti-Israel movement, but to know the truth about Israel, to identify the lies of those who slander Israel. Here is his list. 1. Israel isn't dangerous. 2. Understanding Israel requires an open mind and intellectual honesty and nuance. 3. You should visit Israel on birthright, but Israel can't be fully understood on a 10-day tour. The media presents an inaccurate picture of Israel. 5. The Jewish people are a nation, not just a religion. 6. The Jewish people have the strongest claim to the land of Israel. 7. The Jewish people have a right to self-determination. 8. Jews have been in Israel continuously for 3,000 years. 9. Jerusalem has been the capital of the Jewish people for thousands of years. 10. Anti-Zionism is usually a cover for anti-Semitism. 11. Treating Israel with a double standard is anti-Semitic. 12. Not all criticism of Israel is false, but not all criticism of Israel is true. 13. Israeli politicians and leaders aren't all angels, but they also aren't all devils. 14. Israelis aren't responsible for Palestinian mistakes and miscalculations. 15. Jews treat Palestinians well. 16. It's only under Israeli rule that religious sites are open to all world religions. 17. The U.S.-Israeli relationship is a partnership. And finally, 18. While many consider Israeli rule of the West Bank illegal, America and Israel do not. This is a simple, accurate, and direct list. I hope that young adults will read this piece and engage with its content. If they do, students will wrestle with the real Israel, not some imagined Israel generated by haters of Israel. Coming up, commentary through cartoons where pictures tell the story. I want to show you 8 cartoons, memes, and headlines today. The first 3 cartoons deal with the yellow cloud that covered the Northeast, and we all know that it was caused by the out-of-control wildfires in Canada. If you were in the cloud's path, you know that it was a freaky experience. To see the yellow and the orange hues cover our skies, it was as if we were living a movie. The first cartoon is very simple. The Statue of Liberty is covered in orange, and she says simply, "Oi, Canada." I couldn't have said it better. Next is a couple on a terrace rooftop sipping martinis. They're almost obscured by the smoke that hovers around them. With a cigarette in one hand, one asks the other, "Mind if I smoke?" This next cartoon must have gone through the minds of every single person who wore a mask or saw someone wearing a mask during the yellow smoke. 2 people wearing a mask in the cartoon are talking to one another. One says, "I'm just relieved to be wearing it for something besides the pandemic." That was so true. This next headline is from The Guardian, and it is hilarious. It reads, "Potheads go giggle elsewhere. Public weed ban begins in Amsterdam." And below the headline are 2 posters which read, "No smoking cannabis in public, €100 fine." The caption then reads also, "Tourists and residents now face a €100 fine for public smoking in De Wallen." This next headline is simply sad, so simply sad. It reads, "High school reschedules graduation ceremony due to only 5 seniors found eligible to graduate." Here we have a perfect example of irony and hilarious humor at the same time. The CDC held a conference, and at that conference, at least 181 of the CDC attendees came down with COVID. The headline reads, "CDC conference described as super spreader event after at least 181 attendees test positive for COVID-19. Some things you just can't make up." This is hilarious. This next meme is a perfect example of mixed messaging. It reads, "When your girlfriend leaves a breakup note on your PlayStation saying, 'This isn't working,' but you turn it on and it works just fine." Mixed message, no question. This last meme is from Seinfeld. It's from the episode with the soup Nazi. The soup Nazi runs a restaurant with the most delicious soups, but the catch was that the consumer never got to choose their choice of soup. The soup Nazi made your choice for you, hence the moniker Soup Nazi.
I didn't get any bread.
Just forget it, let it go.
Excuse me, I think you forgot my bread.
Bread, $2 extra.
$2, but everyone in front of me got free bread.
You want bread?
Yes, please.
$3! What? No soup for you.
In this scene, the patron says, "I don't want soup, I want breakfast." All I can say is, oh, oh. As an aside, we used to go to an amazing falafel place that was run the same way. Just like that. The chef owner told you what to order, and it was always delicious. In a moment, more of my own perspective and a few predictions. In a throwback to our background briefing, Iran's supreme leader said that reaching a deal with the West over Tehran's disputed nuclear work was possible if the country's nuclear infrastructure remained intact. Iran's state media quoted Ayatollah Ali Khamenei as saying, "There is nothing wrong with the agreement with the West, but the infrastructure of our nuclear industry should not be touched." The Ayatollah then added that Tehran should continue working with the United Nations nuclear watchdog under the framework of the safeguards. Iran's supreme leader, Khamenei, also admonished the West and said the West could not stop Iran from building a nuclear weapon if Tehran wanted to pursue nuclear arms or any program connected to the nuclear program, which he wants us to believe that they don't even want at all. Listen to what he says. The Ayatollah said, "Talks about Tehran's nuclear weapons is a lie, and they, the West, know it. We do not want nuclear arms based on our religious beliefs. Otherwise, they would not have been able to stop it." Meanwhile, Israeli intelligence personnel are convinced that Iran is the main culprit behind a treasonous Copts telegram group, which published Israeli police officers' names and pictures, supposedly by those opposed to judicial overhaul. According to their statement, it is likely that Iran is behind this defaming campaign, aimed at weakening Israeli resolve and incite further polarization in Israeli society. This cyber attack moves cyber terror to a new high in Iranian hacking. The move was an attempt to heighten internal tensions and divisions in Israel by focusing on police officials. Bruno Mars is a very popular musical performer. He was scheduled to give one performance in Tel Aviv at the Hayarkon Park on October 4th. He was so popular, even in Israel, that the performance almost immediately sold out. It sold out in hours. And that promoted the Live Nation production company to announce a repeat performance just 3 days later on October 7th. Tickets for both dates started at $107. His show should prove very exciting. His performance will take place during the interim days of Sukkot, and the second is scheduled for the evening just after Sukkot ends. The likelihood of the United States and Iran reaching an agreement to curb the latter's nuclear program is increasing, according to reports. The assessment comes to us courtesy of senior Israeli officials who spoke to Ynet on condition of anonymity. With this concern in mind, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant is scheduled to meet with U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to get a detailed briefing on what's happening. The meeting will take place in an unspecified European country. Why there? Because Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has prohibited his ministers from holding meetings with senior U.S. officials in the United States until he, Netanyahu, is invited to the White House. That invitation, a traditional courtesy that the United States presidents routinely extend to Israeli prime ministers, is an invitation that President Joe Biden has yet to extend to Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel. Iran is providing Russia with materials to build a drone manufacturing plant east of Moscow, as the Kremlin looks to lock in a steady supply of weaponry for its ongoing invasion of Ukraine. According to a U.S. intelligence finding released by the White House, National Security Council spokesman John Kirby, U.S. intelligence officials believe a plant in Russia, Special Economic Zone, will be operational early next year. The White House released satellite imagery taken in April of the industrial location, situated several hundred miles east of Moscow, where it believes the plant will probably be built. As far back as December, the Biden administration publicly stated that it believed Tehran and Moscow were considering setting up a drone assembly line in Russia for the Ukraine war. This new intelligence suggests that the project in the Yelabuga region of Tatarstan has already moved beyond conception. President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, announced a donation from the European Union to a new project at Yad Vashem. This project will focus on the history of European Jewish communities destroyed in the Holocaust. Von der Leyen conveyed that the history of the Jewish people is the history of Europe. European life would not have been the same without Jewish culture. The Nazis tried to erase all that. They murdered 6 million European Jews, the greatest tragedy in human history. We must tell the story of the Holocaust. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, let me know what you're thinking. Email me at micah@jbstv.org. Tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one piquante piece of information. Did you know that there is a discussion in the Talmud about sugarcoating the truth? In the tractate of Ketubot, beginning on page 17, bottom of the folio, page A, and then continuing on the top of page B, it asks, how should one dance before a bride? The real question is, how does one speak to a bride on her wedding day? Hillel says that you should say how beautiful she is. But Shammai says, what if she's not beautiful? That would be a lie and a violation of a Torah command in Exodus 23:7, where it's written, stay away from falsehoods. As they always do, Hillel and Shammai go back and forth, and the other commentaries weigh in, not just in the Talmud itself, but from other generations. It is a pretty simple question, and both sides have validity. Bottom line, then as now, every bride is beautiful on her wedding day. Earlier, we spoke about Israel. We have always spoken in the feminine form of Israel, she. She is not perfect, and recognizing the imperfection is important in terms of understanding the real Israel. This is also true about our friends and our family and our teachers and our mentors. Admire and learn from them, but realize that everyone has faults. Everyone is human. That realization and that recognition is an essential part of close relationships with people we care about and love, and the country we care about and love also. Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.